Hey, Jim, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hey guys, calling about the heinous gun crime with a little kid.
Yeah, he was
I
really,
think
really a dangerous menace to society, huh?
the people in the article I read, the superintendent said we did not think it was a weapon. We did, at no point did we believe this was a weapon in any way. So it's not about any kind of safety. This is the intersection of two liberal dreams that you, of course, have in government schools. One, demonize all firearms and train people that they're bad and you can't have them and they're evil just by existing. And two, they're criminalizing being a male in this society. You know, the kids,
What does that have to do with being a
boy,
male?
Well, let me explain. You ask any 11-year-old boy, I've got one, you know, you raise them to be as liberal as possible. Jane Fonda raised one. Boys will bite a piece of American cheese into the shape of a gun. They will get a stick into a gun. Boys want to play guns. That's why Nerf made that product. Okay, boys want to go pow pow, and they have since guns were invented. And before that, they did sword fights.
They still do sword fights.
So you don't believe that if a girl had brought a Nerf gun into school that she would have been suspended too? I mean, we don't have a really fair case to compare because there was no girl that this happened to, but what do you think would have happened?
No, I'm not doing that, but what I'm saying is if you're a little boy growing up in this society, okay, you got a really good chance of not having a father in the home. You go to school, all the teachers are females. All the principals, more or less, are females. The people who taught them in college are females. And so it's an anti-male bias in society. You can't play with guns. You can't be a boy. When Leave It to Beaver went to school, he had like 5 recesses because they knew boys need to go out and run.
You know,
now boys are in.
I hear what you're saying, but there's a problem here, and that is that no teachers are telling the military to not be in school. I know that's high school and we're talking elementary school, but this is a real issue. If these people were so consistent about the deploring violence, then they would tell the military, the recruiters, don't you ever step foot in this school, and they don't.
Well, I would have to say that mostly the gun-grabbing liberals.
Wrong.
Wait just a second. I'd say mostly the gun-grabbing liberals only want to grab guns from people when they are not working for the government. So specifically, they believe that cops should be able to carry guns and soldiers should be able to carry guns, but not even when they're off duty.
Yeah, they want the forces of repression. They want the forces of centralized control to have guns. But the point you made is not true.
What's that?
About military recruitment. They had to pass a law. Congress passed a law saying every Ivy League school barred military recruiters.
Well, that's in college.
Well, yeah, in high schools, it seems pretty easy.
Okay,
and actually, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying.
They're not getting their bullet catchers from Ivy League schools, I'll tell you that.
Well, they were after 9/11. There was a lot of recruitment for smart people to get in the military and get in the intelligence community, and those institutions are controlled by people that don't like America and don't want it to be victorious, and they do not like the military, and they were keeping the military out.
Yeah, I don't know. I see. I see your point, but I don't see society as particularly in America, as a bunch of pacifists. I see them as quite the opposite.
Well, I tend to be kind of 50-50 with the caller here. So the one thing's for sure is that boys are not doing as well in school as they used to. Something's happened that either the focus on girls has either brought them up to the level they should be, or the focus on girls has taken a focus away from boys.
Yeah, I mean, we can look at the rates of basically boys get prescribed Ritalin way more often and diagnosed with ADHD and stuff, which you could really make an argument that they're actually normal. What's wrong with the scenario is the adults, not letting them run around and be themselves.
Yeah, well, yeah, I could. When my son gets in with another kid in the house, it can be too much for me. It's like, good Lord, can't you two settle down? But I really don't tell them to. I just go do something outside because I think they do need to yell and holler as long as they're not breaking things. They need to be able to, go pow pow and do whatever they do.
And if I could bring up another point, go ahead, caller.
Well, no, what the young lady said is exactly the case, and that's where I was going is girls by their nature, and of course there's exceptions both ways, but girls by their nature can fold their hands and sit in a chair neatly and socially interact for hours on end. Boys, 11 years old, they need to run and scream and jump and break things. And you used to go out to recess a lot to do that, but now it's just a world where there's just so little male influence that women educators are like, why are all these boys acting like boys? Why won't they be like the girls that give them drugs?
Jim, thanks for your thoughts tonight. This is Free Talk Live. There's more coming up. 855-450-FREE. Are boys being turned into women? Are they being feminized? I don't know. I had some trouble staying still in school. I couldn't really fold my hands. His premise, I think, was that boys are being, kind of beat down in schools because the whole
it's the feminization of boys in America.
Right. It's the feminization. All the teachers are female. It's a conspiracy against the boys. And like you said, Mark, there are some truths to that. Like, it's true that boys are drugged at a higher rate and diagnosed with these very flimsy psychiatric diagnoses that are just kind of an excuse to pump them full of drugs and shut them up, essentially.
I think there's this sort of attitude, and I don't know where it came from, but this attitude that men are adult children, and so therefore the children of adult children, these children that will grow up to be adult children, are probably dismissed by women more and more. There's this war of the sexes that goes on, whether or not we want to talk about it. And I'm not saying everybody's participating. Some of us are on the sidelines.
No, I don't want to participate in it.
But that doesn't mean you're not going to get a headshot along the way. Fortunately, you're in a romantic relationship with somebody that's probably not going to be the case. But I think that by and large, there's still a war of the sexes on. And
yeah, but okay. So if we acknowledge that's true, and I think I would acknowledge that's true, feminists say that patriarchy hurts men as much as it hurts women.
Does it matter what feminists say when, are these teachers feminists?
Well, no, but a teacher is a job that is basically a female gender role. Like, it's traditionally, there has been this idea that the only appropriate jobs for a woman to have are basically secretary, teacher, and nurse. Kind of thing.
Kind of things.
And so, sure, a lot of women ended up as teachers because that was sort of the expectation. And perhaps those teachers maybe do have a likelihood of treating boys a little bit differently, but it's all part of the same system that says that women can only be teachers, secretaries, and nurses. And maybe if that weren't the case, then there would be more male teachers or maybe different treatment of boys in schools.
Yeah, this brings up one of the points I wanted to make. That I wanted to make before the end of the last segment, but we didn't have time. And it is response to one of the things the caller said. And the caller was very gracious to say, look, there's exceptions to all this stuff. And absolutely. And I think he's right.
Yeah.
But the idea, he brought up the idea that, look, boys want to, if it wasn't guns, then they'd pick up swords. If it wasn't, the thing is that you are implying that, let's say, a 4 or 5-year-old, 6-year-old has devised weaponry by nature, because this is the idea, is that they naturally do this. This is in their nature that they do this. So today, for today's example, by nature, a 5-year-old boy figures out a gun, figures out how to invent, not just figures out how to use it, but invented a gun that, yes, I will have a stick that will shoot a bullet. No, a 5-year-old can't figure that stuff out. And I'll say it's a sword. Then swords, all these different weapons and stuff. You're saying that kids naturally figure out how to create weapons in a vacuum?
I don't know if that's the implication. I think it is
the implication, but people don't think about it, Stephanie.
No, I think if you think about it, what the implication is that violence is a part of maleness. I think that's what they're saying, is that basically they're seeing guns on TV, and so they express it by turning a piece of cheese into a gun, but that the violence is the thing that's hard-coded into their nature. And I'm not sure if I even accept that. That's kind of an insult to men, frankly, right, but that they're all so violent that they're just going to be,
Yes, but the weaponry is the proof of that assessment of theirs. Yep. But what I'm saying is that that's nonsense. There's no way a kid did that in a vacuum. He saw someone do it. He saw swords. He saw guns. He saw whatever these things are.
Right.
This is crap.
If a kid is acting out violence, kids are great at mirroring things. So, like, where did they see that violence portrayed before they started acting it out is a question that I think needs an answer, right?
If we eliminated violence in movies, video games, and media and everything today, and then started in a new world, I would agree with you. They wouldn't mimic it.
Right.
However, somebody would then create violence in movies, video games, because violence is compelling. And
I'm not talking about movies. I'm talking about, like,
but Brian is. Brian's saying that kids use guns and swords and punches because... I
honestly think they're more likely to just copy what their parents are doing, and parents do a fair amount of violence in this society, including hitting their kids.
Sure, wherever they got it from. But yeah, the point is that they didn't learn that in a vacuum.
Okay, my son has never seen me wield a gun. Hadn't seen me wield a gun, a sword, or or hit his mother, or hit anything at all in his life, and still does all the things that other kids do because he watched TV, and TV has these compelling, interesting things like cartoons where Captain America punches a bad guy or whatever goes on. So I think that violence is compelling in a storytelling fashion, mainly because most of our storytelling mediums are visual, and it's a lot easier to illustrate conflict with violence than it is to illustrate conflict sort of, I don't like him, or he upsets me, or something like that. It's just not as compelling.
Yeah, I mean, and if the resolution's not violent, you end up with War and Peace, Dostoevsky or whatever, and it ends up being this 1,200-page book. But Stephanie, you had another quick point. I thought that was great.
What was that?
About military in the high school.
Oh, yeah. So thanks for reminding me about that, Brian. And then we'll get to Adam's call in just a moment. But I have a friend who does counter-recruitment activism. She works with Veterans for Peace, and they're an organization that puts out information that basically presents an alternative view to what the military recruiters will tell children in schools. That, the military recruiters are saying, oh, yeah, join the Army. It's great. You'll see the world. You'll get your college paid for. It's awesome. And these counter-recruitment organizations put out more of a view of what actually happens when you join the military, which can often be very different than that. And my friend has to just fight. She's been fighting for years to try to get some space in the schools alongside where the National Guard and the Army have set up their recruitment tables. And they won't let her in, but they'll let the military recruiters in, no problem.
Yeah, Veterans for Peace has tried as well. They just can't get in.
Yeah.
The schools won't let them.
The Second Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled that they have to let counter-recruiters in if they let recruiters into a school, and they still don't do it.
Yeah. And this is in a liberal area of San Francisco. So, I mean, what's it like in
California,
other places? There are probably no counter-recruitment organizations to speak of, but...
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.